So our topic was overfishing of shrimps in Maine. First I will introduce you to our article, then David will explain the market value diagram, then Nisha will explain the solution diagram, and then Tobias will explain the evaluation. So where did our article took place? It took place in Maine, USA. What was the problem that they're facing? The problem was that the shrimp population drastically went back, and that the scientists started to be concerned about the population. Why did the population go back? The population went back because of overfishing. So what happened was that the demand for shrimps increased and the fishermen overfished the sea. The short run effect for this would be that they make more money, but the long run would be that their main product is gone. The problem with overfishing is that even though there are plenty of fish, and in this case shrimps, there's still a limited product. So what did they decide to do in order to address this problem? Well, they decided to completely ban the shrimp fishing for 2013, which in my opinion is really a drastic decision. Now let's take a look at the statistics. Well, first of all, there were no exact statistics. So what this means, there were plenty of shrimps that they did not have to be concerned about. But now, as the shrimp population went back, they actually banned the shrimp fishing for one complete year. So you have to imagine from how much the shrimp population went back to completely banning the shrimp fishing for 1 year. So you went from not even caring about how much shrimp you have because you have so much, and then to completely banning the shrimp fishing for 1 year.
This market failure is a negative externality of production, where the marginal social cost is higher than the marginal private cost. A market failure is when market allocates resources inefficiently, greater or less than the socially optimal level. The definition of a negative production externality is when the production of a good creates spillover costs for the society or the third party. These are the people who aren't the consumers or the producers, simply the innocent. The supply curve and demand curve start an equilibrium of PE and QE, where MPC, the marginal private cost, is equal to MPB, the marginal private benefit. Ideally, however, the supply curve would be on the marginal social cost curve, with a higher price of PSO and a smaller quantity of QSO. The higher price means that the consumers will have to pay more for the shrimps as the quantity is less. There's an overallocation as QE, the original equilibrium quantity, is bigger than the QSO, the socially optimal quantity. Overallocation means that the more shrimps are being fished than would be socially optimal. This overallocation results in a welfare loss, or a deadweight loss, which is shown by the green triangle. Deadweight loss occurs when supply and demand are not at equilibrium. The welfare loss shows what is not achieved due to inefficiency.
To tackle the problem of the negative externality in production, in this case the overfishing of shrimp, there are two options. The first is a tax. This would be an excise tax on shrimp and would ideally be equal to the value of the externality. This would cause the new supply curve, the supply tax curve, to be equal to the marginal social cost curve, and it would run over it. This, of course, would be ideal, as there would be no inefficiencies in the market, and all externalities would be eliminated. This would also avoid any welfare loss, and as David mentioned, it would achieve the goals of bringing the price up from the equilibrium price to the socially optimal price, and bringing the quantity down from the equilibrium quantity to the socially optimal quantity. This would create a new equilibrium at QSO and PSO, where S tax is equal to demand, or marginal social cost is equal to demand. The second option is a regulation, and specifically this would be a regulation on the amount of shrimp that can be fished. So for example, one fisherman or a fishing company can only fish a certain amount of shrimp in a certain amount of time. This is seen as a higher cost of production to the producers, which is a determinant of supply. This higher cost of production would shift the supply curve, to the left, ideally closer to the marginal social cost curve. And if in a perfect world, this would run directly over the marginal social cost curve. This would create a new supply curve, shown in this diagram as MSC, and again would achieve the same goals as the tax by bringing the price up from the equilibrium price to the socially optimal price, and bringing the quantity down from the equilibrium quantity to the socially optimal quantity. Additionally, both of these options, regulations and taxes, if done correctly, avoid any welfare loss, as there are no inefficiencies in the market, and the green triangle in this diagram would, as you see, be eliminated. Toby will now evaluate these two options, the tax and the regulations.
When evaluating the two options, one can first look at the advantages and disadvantages of the tax on shrimp. Because the demand drops due to the increase in price from the tax, the amount of shrimp produced will decrease, and although it therefore allows the population of shrimp to increase, total welfare decreases and the market size will decrease. In terms of short and long-term effects, short-term effects are that the shrimp fishing will decrease and less production takes place. In long term, the number of shrimp fishers could increase again because the shrimp population is replenished. The market size and total welfare decreases and profits of companies will decrease, therefore the stakeholders will suffer from lower profits because shrimp as a good is not inelastic, meaning consumers will change from buying shrimp to buying other seafood if the price rises due to the taxes. When putting a regulation on the shrimp fishing, the advantages and disadvantages include that since regulations reduce the amount of shrimps caught and sold, the prices will rise, seeing as less of the good is available. Therefore, once again, the total welfare and the market size will decrease and profits will suffer. Similar to the implementation of a tax, the regulation would reduce the amount produced in the short run. However, it might never increase in the long run because regulations have been passed. Both taxing and regulating will affect consumers and producers. However, a regulation affects the shrimp business in the Maine area only, whilst a tax would affect the shrimp nationwide. A tax would be a smarter solution because where regulation also affects the government, seeing as they need to pay the cost for regulation, a tax gives the government money while reducing the amount of shrimp caught without giving the shrimp markets a limit of production, but rather forcing them to reduce the fishing and thereby replenishing the shrimp population, seeing as the price rises and the demand decreases. The money collected from the tax could then be used to subsidize the shrimp fishers in the Maine area in order to uphold the personal profits they received when producing more fish before the tax. A tax would therefore be a continuous flow and allow the profits to remain the same while still reducing the endangering of the shrimp population in the Maine